you know that.
Good afternoon and welcome to our weekly series, Road to the White House, Politics, Media, and Technology. We're very pleased to have a terrific panel today. My name is Jeffrey Baum. Excuse me. My computer is on the, we're being webcast, and so what's interesting is that I have the webcast up on the computer right now, and then I'm hearing the audio of that. So let me fix this while we get settled, because I'm going to be showing some of these websites that we've been discussing. So my name is Jeff Baum. I'm the Managing Director of the Center on Communication Leadership and Policy at the Annenberg School. We put this series together throughout the academic year this year with the Unruh Institute of Politics out of the Dornsife School, and I see Roz and Twee and Kirsten from the Unruh Institute here, and the Bedrosian Center at the now Price School for Public Policy, and Aubrey's here from the Bedrosian Center. There's students here from the Annenberg School, the Public Policy School, and schools across the university. I appreciate you all braving the rain to make it here with us today. One of the things that's been very interesting in this race is the role the media has played, both the way that they've covered the campaigns, but also the way the candidates have interacted. We also now just have joining us Dan Schnur, the director of the Unruh Institute. So I want to wave to Dan, and you're all friendly with Dan. And we wanted to have an opportunity, since it's played such an important role in the media and the way technology has transformed the way candidates use the media, how the media covers things, and provided an opportunity to create new channels of coverage for politics in our American political system. So I couldn't think of anybody better to lead this conversation than a good friend of mine, a professor at the Annenberg School, as well as a fellow at my center, the Center on Communication Leadership and Policy, and a former speechwriter for Governor Pete Wilson, Jon Wilcox. So John's going to lead the discussion. I'm going to step aside and then look forward to a terrific conversation. We are, as you know, being web streamed live, and this conversation will be available for anybody to link to following this event as well. So please welcome Jonathan Wilcox, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jeff, and show you what some real monitoring looks like. But no, I want to, my laptop is off, but first I want to say is that I think this is a really important gathering, and make sure that we have all voices. I'm constantly asked, what should be the balance? Should it be liberal, conservative, moderate, 50-50, one-third, one-third, one-third? And I think that one thing that I'm dedicated to is it should be just 100 and 100 and 100. There's all voices and all perspectives, and everybody should be heard, and I think that should be the rallying cry here. The reason why we have media, multimedia, new media, even the old media, is to have more voices and more perspectives at all times. And so I think that there's a lot of talent on this table. Let's start with a first question in perspective, and Lizzy, real time. Here's the question I want to make for you, is because a lot of us who've been in media and in politics, or worked in it, around it, either for it or against it, we tended to focus on some of the old things, but you represent obviously some of the new stage and tomorrow's age. And I want to see where when we talk about media, we talk about Republicans, we talk about the GOP and the back and forth, where do you get your media, and do you think that the complaints about mainstream media are misplaced?
Well, I'd have to say that since I've gotten to USC, I get my media or my news from different sources. I try to stay up to the latest technological innovations, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. So I don't really read more of like the print journalism, even though I try to. So I'll, follow different political figureheads on Facebook or on Twitter and on Facebook just to find out what they believe. But I also try to keep as balanced of a perspective as possible. So I have various apps on my iPhone where I'll follow Fox News, I'll follow CNN, and I think, just keeping in mind that, I do believe definitely that there's a liberal bias there, and just to check and balance that, different information that is available. And I'll also just keep in mind that because of that, I need to also check and balance, what I am reading, that I'll also need to check and balance what I'm learning. So since I also do get my information, say, from my teachers or different clubs I'm a part of, such as the College Republicans, where the Daily Trojan, the newspaper at our school, we feel has more of a liberal bias. So to kind of, have an idea of how we can, deal with that we have someone who is designated to speak with the Daily Trojan. And so it's just, I think, with people my age, it's just definitely taking into consideration the bias and how best we can keep everything balanced.
Well, it's that sense of media of awareness and also caution, if we don't want to say bias, that led to the creation of a couple of important media sites. Let me start with Andrew Breitbart. You created your site and other sites for specific reasons, Huffington Post and even yours. What was the motivation behind it, and what do you think has changed and where we now, the voice you're bringing and its perspective and what it means to bridging all the media that we talk about in politics?
I would argue we're living in the most extraordinarily exciting time in the history of media, and the people who would report on that, the reporters and the journalists and the publications and the networks that would be the people to report this truthful statement to you, are the only people in the world who are unhappy about what's happening because their jobs are at risk, because not just technology allowed for people, they said, about buying a press, that's the most important thing to do, buying ink by the barrel load, how important it is to control the media. Well, now anybody can be the media, and a great writer and a great lawyer, researcher can break a story that can ultimately win a Pulitzer Prize if the Pulitzers ever get out of its J-school mindset. And it's a very exciting time. It just is. And competition is good for the industry. I tripped upon this profession, though I was always obsessed with news growing up. I was a default cultural liberal from the west side of Los Angeles. I went to Brentwood High School, went to Tulane. I was a decadent bastard there for 4 years. Came back with a very leftist approach to the world and the belief that I was in fact a victim and that the world owed me something, the government owed me something. And then my dad said something terrible. He said, it's over. I said, what do you mean? He goes, no more money. It's over. And then I had to get a job. And that started a downward spiral and a social spiral to where I find myself hanging out with Republicans because I am one, and I'm a conservative now. And it was an awkward transition. I got very lucky to meet Matt Drudge at the right place at the right time before it was the Drudge Report, and it afforded me the ability for 15 years to do something that you would think is absurdist. That's almost there was something wrong with me. If you witnessed what I was doing with my life from 1995 to 2010, starting early in the morning through late at night, I gave up television, I gave up movies, gave up going to concerts. I'd watch baseball out of my eye because I could watch it at home. I read newswires. I analyzed how the media was done repetitiously every single day. I knew when the newspapers would hit, when the Australian paper would hit. That was tomorrow's paper. Today it's Wednesday, it's Thursday there. I was reading Thursday's Australian and New Zealand papers. I was reading at about this time of day was the beginning of the day for the British papers, the next day's papers to come out. They do media better than we do media. Trust me on that. And what's happening now, when I was a kid, when I would go to New Orleans to check out Tulane, I stayed in my hotel room for an hour to watch the local news, and I read the New Orleans Times-Picayune because I wanted to embrace it. I wanted to feel like I knew the town before I went out and drank till I threw up. Now, you don't even remember that. You're too young to realize an era in which you can read the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Jakarta Times. You're getting it from everywhere. That's an inherently good thing. And I started to realize, holy moly, the media is not just slightly left of center. It is the means by which the left is able to control the narrative in the country. It was just so obvious. In Britain, it's different. The British papers are overtly conservative, the Telegraph, the Times of London, or the Sun, overtly, just as the left of center ones, the Independent and the Guardian, are overtly left of center. And I read all of them, and I can't tell you how many great articles I read in the left of center ones. I was like, this is good. People are at least being honest. There's no such thing as objectivity and neutrality, and the J schools are fraudulently selling you that point when the majority of the professors there are silver-haired ponytails from the 60s who believe in social justice and economic justice and want to teach you how to save the world through journalism. That's biased journalism. We're moving towards a more fair playing field, and I believe more voices, not less, unlike leftists who would like to shut down me, get me kicked off of ABC News, get Dana Lash kicked off of CNN vis-a-vis Media Matters and other organizations. I so believe in the concept of more voices, not less. I created the Huffington Post, and I told Ariana, I want more voices, not less. There isn't a left of center place other than Daily Kos and Democrats Underground where people would write George Bush is equal to Hitler under pseudonyms. It's like 2 Live Crew 33333337. I'm like, who's that? So I said, Ariana, if you can get your leftist friends, many of whom teach here, and many who are actors, to go online, that would be a great thing. I want to hear what they have to say. And I'm happy that my narrative is more voices, not less, versus the left, whether it be in Cuba, Venezuela, the modern college campus where there are speech codes. I believe in more freedom, not less freedom, more voices, not less.
It's inspiring in a way because a person in my business and teaching and working, I want to be as influential and as powerful communicator as that, but I'll settle for being a decadent bastard. So there's still there's one thing you said, of many things said there that I want to follow up on. That was anyone can be the media. And I look at someone like Jon Fleischman, who I've known and who I didn't used to like, so he's come more to me these days. But the fact is, we haven't always got. We haven't always. I was going to expose him as a UCLA fan. Was I not supposed to say that? Okay. But one thing I want to say most about Jon Fleischman, he represents exactly what
I grew up an SC fan.
Andrew was. That's why.
Thank you.
And Jon Fleischman will become one. Every sinner has a future, John. But anyone can be the media, and I think you represent that very well because Jon Fleischman is an activist, a political professional, has been involved in more campaigns, elections, and government politics than almost anyone I know, but now represents, I think, obviously the most influential political media voice in California politics, by far, by far, by far. And that is because, as you said, anybody can be the media. Jon, you started your site for reasons of wanting to participate. It's now become one that shapes but also brings in other voices. It is not just of the right. It is of all voices. You find yourself also a player in the mainstream media. Talk about the influences, how it came to be, and how it's changed since you began.
Well, we actually shamelessly take advantage of a phenomena that is not good. Andrew just talked about how he spends time reading news sources of all kinds in order to help have a well-rounded opinion. We take advantage of the fact that most people actually prefer to get their news sources from people they agree with. And so, frankly, that helps us. We're a news aggregator on the right, and we also produce original content on the right. We're very focused on specifically in California politics. Jonathan's being a bit generous when he says we have all voices. We're kind of like from the center right to the Attila the Hun, Jon Fleischman right. And so we have that spectrum. We had a column once from the head of a state public employee union in California, and that was really more him wanting to chide conservatives, and we were just trying to mix it up. But as a practical matter, what's going on now is, as Andrew said, anybody who is smart, anybody who can understand how to do investigative work, anyone who is willing to do that and kind of combine that with kind of just a general code of standard conduct that is, you do your research, you check your facts, you write in a way that is fair. If you do all of those things, anybody in this room can be the next guy that takes down some national leftist group, whether it be Acorn or whatever the case may be. Anybody in this room, it's just a changing marketplace. We've gotten to the point now where you have a kind of a confluence of two major things going on at the same time. On one hand, much of the institution that has been the mainstream media is now kind of falling apart because the normal funding mechanisms, the advertising and things like that, aren't there anymore. And so the mainstream media is quickly moving to the left because the only place where they get their reliable funding is through the people like George Soros and the hard left people who inject money into the marketplace to save media as this institution to bias everyone to the left. And the battle that they're fighting is against the people. It's against citizen journalists. It's about the fact that now everyone has an opportunity to get their information from so many different places. And of course, the number one place where people like to get their information is from somebody they know, a trusted source, someone that they've known. So while there are big sites like Breitbart.com or Big Government or Flash Report, the reality is we may have a megaphone, but the reality is you guys, and what you put on your Facebook page, what you put on your Twitter feed, what you put on your personal blog that impacts the 100 or 200 people you know is literally what we do. We're just doing it on a louder level. By the way, I should pitch Andrew and I now. If you've got something that influences 100 of your friends, send it to us, because we'd also like to use that to influence.
By the way, his email is andrew@breitbart.com.
That's right.
If you have any tips, make sure to send it to him.
That's right.
But we've said a couple different things here, which is anyone can be part of media, and that, but at the same time, you've described whether it's the so-called mainstream media or other voices that control the narrative. Lizzy, you've talked about in your school experience and the media you follow that there is some narrative control going on, and you felt some pressure and being boxed in from it. Talk a little bit about that, and do you think it's getting better or getting worse?
Well, first I believe that it depends which school you choose to go to. I knew that when I chose to go to USC that it would have a little bit more of a liberal bent towards it, so I do take full accountability for that. But
is there a school that you can pick that doesn't have a liberal bent?
There's one in Michigan.
That's good to know. I'll look for grad school. But I would have to say that, I've had a few conservative teachers, and I've had many liberal teachers as well. And there's this one class that I was in where for our final exam we had an essay part, and we had 3 questions, but 2 of the 3 questions we were informed were going to be about Occupy Wall Street. And we learned about it in class, and the thing that I said that I guess would irk me the most was just that we weren't given the choice whether or not we'd like to write about Occupy Wall Street. If you would like to give the best education possible, I think that you should look at all aspects. And I kind of asked, why weren't we given the opportunity to write about the Tea Party? So, just kind of that experience, just led me to see kind of like the controlling that you were speaking about. And then there was also in that class as well, we were learning about global warming. And the thing about that was that we also weren't given the choice as to whether or not we believed in global warming. It was just shaping policy for global warming. And, I think the best thing to do would be to have, people have the choice whether they'd like to say, okay, this is how I think global warming policy should be shaped, or, hey, I don't believe in global warming. And we were also asked, does anyone in here watch Fox News? And it was almost like the teacher kind of scoffed and chuckled as to whether people in the class would actually watch Fox News. So I think just being in that...
Does anyone in here want to be asked to leave the room? So you think that's what you felt was the inference there, in a sense? Made you feel uncomfortable? Yeah,
I rose my hand proudly, and there's another person who rose his hand as well. But, people just kind of looked around at us like, oh, you would watch, Fox News. And
you've just isolated yourself for the rest of your career, your tenure here, 100%, and people are afraid. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, whether it be in Hollywood, whether it be in media. Can I go down this route?
I want you to go down this road.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm usually kind of like a bull in a china store, so
I want you to go down
thank you. One of the reasons why I'm so pissed off, and one of the reasons why I fight back, and one of the reasons why I use humor and mischief as a means to get a story out there is because if I simply write the story and put it up there, it gets ignored.
Like, for example, Big Hollywood.
I created Big Hollywood. I used to think that I was the only one that thought these crazy thoughts on the west side of Los Angeles. I go to Whole Foods. They have a delicious sandwich there that I partake in on a daily basis. And I just try and keep...
a reusable bag that you take with you every day?
I'm your typical west side denizen. I just happen to disagree with the politics. When I started to become a more public person, I started to express myself politically. I started to get a phenomenon in 3 specific places. Whether I was at CBS, NBC, or ABC, where they were doing a report on me, people would come out of their cubicles and secretly whisper, "I'm on the team, but don't tell anyone." And then I started to meet people in Hollywood because I created this site called Big Hollywood, and they would say, "Psst, I'm on the team, but I can't say anything. My boss would fire me." And in academia, I live at UCLA, and there are 10 professors that I can count who lean conservative. About 4 or 5 of them who are actually in the sciences, so it doesn't affect anything unless mitochondria, is, a political body. I don't know. I don't even remember what that is. I just. And why is it that people on the right have to hush themselves in the cultural environment? And it's because, and this is not attacking your grandmother's Democratic Party or your mother's Democratic Party, but the left has done a coup d'etat of the Democratic Party, and the people that reside there now have the same strain of totalitarianism in leftist states like Hugo Chavez, Castro, former Romania, Soviet Union. And cultural Marxism is what's at play. Political correctness is what's at play. I was an American Studies major, and I was going up, the elevator. I was like, oh, the Latin American Alumni Association, the African Alumni Association, the Gay Alumni Association. What the is that? I mean, we are supposed to be a nation that believes in e pluribus unum, and this separatism that is forced at the cultural level, where people are told if you're black, you have to have one point of view, and if you're not, you're called an Uncle Tom and an Oreo. And the white liberal orthodoxy, the white liberal media, the Katie Courics of the world, the Ted Kennedys of the world, when he went after Clarence Thomas, reinforced you're going to get your ass kicked if you go off of the reservation. At a certain point, I said, there's no room further into the closet for me or my friends to go, other than to fight back and say, to hell with you, your system works. You've created an environment where there isn't intellectual diversity. You've created an environment where there isn't a free flow of ideas wherever the left exists. Hollywood, the mainstream media, and academia, they are places for suppression of thought, and it's an absolute tragedy that people can't see that.
Jon, let me ask you about your site. Do you feel like, in coming, you said you're center-right to the Fleischman right, but you brought together media and news and daily digest. Do you think that, as Andrew spoke about, that there's been a self-censorship or maybe a concern about coming into the light? Do you think that what you're doing and your fans and all your people who support you in the Sacramento, elected officials all over the country, in Washington, D.C. as well, and all over the country, do you think that that this media gathering can help them sort of come into the light in the way that Andrew spoke about?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I have to speak for everybody here. We're all wondering if the sweater is some sort of shout out to Rick.
This is not a solidarity statement. I thought
but I will take the microphone back before you can expand on my thought.
When Breitbart was here, I thought for sure Occupy would be here, and if they were going to splash red paint, I wanted to have something to match. But.
Yeah, your question was a little convoluted, so I wasn't quite sure I got it. But
jeez,
I don't.
But what I took out of what I took out of the question was with an aggregation news site, there is more of an opportunity for conservative site to be able to get information directly from what few conservatives are out there and put it in a place where more people can get it than ever before. Because the reality is, like, for example, Congressman Ed Royce, who's a Republican from Orange County, stereotypically, he's got some stuff to say about Barack Obama's budget that you're not even going to get to read on the editorial page of the LA Times, because the LA Times, as Andrew pointed out, they're on a mission, which is not intellectual diversity and difference of opinion. On the occasion that they put up an article from a Republican, they're either lampooning the right by putting somebody so far up to the right that normal Republicans go, what the hell are they doing? Or they go out and they pick the least articulate Republican they can find and put them up on the page. And so more and more, I think if you're going to have a diverse discussion, it's not enough that you have people out there that have conservative thoughts and conservative ideas. You need places like Big Hollywood, like Big Piece, like like Flash Report, where people can go to it, find it, and it aggregates, and it can make a difference, because you know, we're in a war here, and we're in a war over the future of our country, and if we're going to win this battle, a big part of the battle is influencing the thought and the minds of the people in this nation, and that's what's really going on here, is that the only exposure that you have when you turn on your television, I guess Fox News might be like a little island in an otherwise unruly sea of liberal crap. But the reality is it's very, very difficult if you don't make a concerted effort to turn on your television and not be bombarded not only by the left on the straight up media, but just on every aspect of what's coming out of Hollywood, from the TV shows, from the movies. There's a culture war in America, and it's not going very well.
Here comes the big challenge in a sense. The most listened to talk radio program in America is hosted by Rush Limbaugh, who's a conservative. The most watched cable news network in America is the Fox News channel, which obviously leans to the right. The New York Times is not the most read newspaper in America. The Wall Street Journal is the most read newspaper in America, has probably the leading conservative editorial page. The Flash Report is the most read California Daily Digest of news. The Breitbart sites are blowing up. What are you guys so worked up about?
Oh, well, I'll pass it to
Is that a setup?
Well, to harken back to my Tulane days, I used to drive the 2,000 miles to New Orleans on, I love this. Does anyone know how to get to New Orleans from here? I-10, that's right. It's easy. It's a very easy ride. And as you're driving, this is before the age of Sirius and XM radio. By the time you hit the desert, or Hemet or Barstow or something like that, you're changing the channel every 20 miles. You're just trying to, and the only stuff that you could find was Tejano music, and I love it. I do. I don't understand how it was created. I heard there was like some Polish immigration thing, and I don't know. It flummoxes me to this day that Tejano music exists. And there was nothing there other than, if you like pina colada, like bad songs from the 70s and the 80s. It was a moribund dial. It was dying. The AM dial was dying. Well, at the same time, ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times, Washington Post, all liberal media. So Rush Limbaugh, who's been fired from this, disc jockey job to that disc jockey job because he wanted to do it a different way, did it a different way, and he absolutely revived that dial and made it a huge part of the news economy, and is the beginning of building the foundation of this new media. Drudge comes along 7 years later in 1995 and basically says to everyone here, if I can do it from my apartment in Hollywood, in deep Hollywood, if I can do it, you can do it. As long as you have a modem and as long as you have some file space on your dial-up service, you can create your own website. So the AM dial and the internet changed everything, and they circumvented the left's constraining of the narrative. And so given in the free marketplace choice between one point of view and another, people do choose it. But that's why you have Media Matters out there trying to get me kicked off of TV, because they don't want people to hear it.
Take a second and explain like the nickel tour of what Media Matters is.
It's a George Soros-funded organization that goes out there and claims to be, because it's a 501c3 and should be nonpartisan, that claims to be nonpartisan, but goes out there and tries to destroy alternative voices, conservative voices. And Tucker Carlson of the Daily Caller, God bless him, just is doing an expose on Media Matters. I've said for the longest time they're very dangerous. Alan Dershowitz, the liberal icon from Harvard Law, just called them Stalinists and said he won't vote for Barack Obama again if he doesn't disconnect himself from this group of stormtroopers. And they're the most horrible people. They want to shut people up. These are the people, there are people out there that want to silence these organizations. That's why they come up with the fairness doctrine, to try and figure out how to neutralize things. That's why they come up with all these different utopian-sounding devices to try and control, such as they get so upset about the Citizen United ruling, When you go to an Occupy event, they're like, Citizens United is evil, it's horrible. Do you believe that corporations are people? Now listen to me. Come every election cycle, when Hollywood wants to make a $100 million movie, Avatar, that is a political advertisement, and drops it, and everybody's like, oh my God, the earth, we're losing it, we have to vote for the Democrats. That's political expression, and it's protected by the First Amendment. God forbid conservatives who do not have the ability to get a sitcom on the air get a 30-second ad in order to say, hey, there's another point of view out there. The left wants to control the narrative, and it is a success, but it's only a beginning. The biggest problem is politics is downstream from culture, and the type of headway that's been made in the last 25 years in new media, starting with 24 years with Rush Limbaugh and Matt Drudge, is those are tiny little islands that it doesn't even compare to ABC, CBS, NBC. It doesn't compare to Paramount, Sony, and the other monolith in the cultural thing. So there's a hell of a lot more that needs to be done to create something that's in the neighborhood of parody.
Yeah.
I want to talk about being downstream of culture. I was talking to Lizzy before the event, and we talked about that she was reading Breitbart sites, she's reading Jon Fleischman, and she said one thing that she thinks is maybe holding back some of your friends, young people, the next generation, is that we're just not, and she didn't want to say it, but she meant it as we're not cool. That's before I told her about the vest. And I think that what I want to ask you is, do you think that is that what's holding it back? Is he right about how that what's being downstream of the culture is the space in between, where you would talk about conservatives being involved, having influence in the media, having influence in the culture?
Yeah, well, I think that there's definitely a divide between the conservatives and more the Democrats and liberals with using the technological sources that they have at their disposal, whether it's Twitter, Facebook. And I think that this was, even though I think it's on the rise, I think it was really highlighted with President Obama versus McCain's when that was going on. And, you have Barack Obama here, this young, guy who they're putting on magazine covers with his shirt off, and he's dancing on Ellen, and then you have on the other hand, John McCain, who is viewed as, being a lot older. Maybe you play a game of golf with him. So,
yeah, maybe your grandfather would play a game of golf with him.
So when you're looking at, okay, for say, you're talking about people who are my age. When you look at who am I going to follow, who, will I be viewed as more cool for supporting? Some people are going to be more inclined to support Barack Obama versus John McCain, and that was seen through the amount of followers he had on Twitter or on Facebook. And then, you look at it today, and I feel like with the candidates that are out there right now who are running for president, I don't feel they have, stirred up much emotion, whereas you have some people who are very influential, such as Mr. Fleischman and Mr. Breitbart and Sarah Palin, who are really energizing, the crowd, and, they know how to stir up that emotion to get more followers, and, they've created that community, that kind of tea party, where they can be more influential.
This is like Matt Barkley to Marquis Lee, because in this best-selling book, which is called Righteous Indignation, while I save the world, Andrew Breitbart writes, of John McCain, the last standard bearer of the Republican Party was the defeated presidential candidate John McCain. McCain spent an entire political career cozying up to the media power structure in Washington, New York, and Hollywood. Then when he finally ran, expecting that he'd be treated with dignity and respect for capitulating on core conservative principles, the media treated him like a mutt. Speaking of the presidential campaign, do you think that we're in one more time for the candidates, Republican candidates, being treated like mutts? Jon Fleischman.
Oh, well, that goes without saying. The reality is the media is biased. They have their very strong opinion. The folks who are in the media world are not even pretending to be biased and unbiased. They would very much like to see this president go on. They're probably more from the Reich school, which is they'll hold their nose and support this president, even though he's not as pure as they would like, because they're all kind of ivory tower elite ideologues on the left. And so, clearly the media is going to be going to pummel whoever the Republican nominee is, and it's a separate question from, as Lizzy was pointing out, we have an inspirational gap with our Republican candidates. But, you know, as a practical matter, when we get down past the Republican convention, I mean, you really only have two choices, because Barack Obama is going to represents the abyss, literally. He represents going off the cliff into further socialism in America. And we have to stop it with, yeah, exactly. We're going to have to stop it with whatever we happen to put forward. I wanted Andrew to run for president, but, you know, he said his children wouldn't let him. So, you know.
I don't even know what mitochondria is. So.
But speaking of real quick about the campaigns, do you think that, look, everybody knows that Newt Gingrich's campaign has been animated somewhat and excited somewhat by attacks on the media, that in this campaign, which has seen numerous televised debates, and then the candidates attack the media, they're televising the debates. Is that represent some historic shift?
Yeah, they're taking their cues finally from us, that these people are framing the debate. Did you see that little rat George Stephanopoulos with the water dripping, the sweat dripping off his nose, and he's like going, tell us about contraception, tell them about gay marriage. The people in New Hampshire could have cared less, who are making their decision, who they're going to choose on that stage about contraception. I guarantee you he was in direct coordination with the Obama administration to have the foresight to bring up 2 months ago what is now front and center. That's how close the coordination goes. Oh, do you know who George Stephanopoulos is and how he got into the position of being the interlocutor, the mediator on the all-important Sunday show and then on Good Morning America, both allegedly neutral journalistic endeavors? He was in charge of the war room for Bill Clinton, was in charge of suppressing the women who were out there who were saying that this guy was a serial sexual harassment machine. Okay, there was even a woman by the name of Juanita Broaddrick that went on Lisa Myers, to her credit, at NBC, interviewed Juanita Broaddrick, who was a supporter, and money and a donor to the Clinton campaign, and he claimed that Bill Clinton, then governor, raped her in the Excelsior Hotel in downtown Little Rock. He was in charge of the team to try to suppress this type of stuff. He was part of the team that told ABC News that if you put FBI agent Gary Aldrich on ABC News to talk about his #1 best-selling book about the Clinton White House, we will remove all access to the White House. Okay? What happens? Think about this. You're ABC News and you have this punk by the name of George Stephanopoulos saying, we want you to suppress information or we will suppress our access. He's out there using thuggery in order to get his way. If I were ABC, if I were David Weston, the former head of ABC, I'd be thinking to myself, if that guy even attempts to be in this building again for suppressing news, just kick him out. Instead, they gave him a neutral, objective journalist position to frame the narrative, to have direct coordination with one White House over the other. I've been sandbagged when I've gone on ABC News where they tell me, we're going to be talking about this, and it's a bait and switch. It is, as Jon said, it is a war. It is a war. And they use the sophistication of smoke and mirrors. And George Stephanopoulos is neutral. Christiane Amanpour, who's married to the former spokesperson for Bill Clinton's Secretary of State Department, Jamie Rubin, who got a miraculous, during the Clinton administration, the first interview ever with the Ayatollah or something, back then. How did we make that connection? Oh, that's right, you're dating the person. When they're on the news, it says journalist, George Stephanopoulos, journalist, Christiane Amanpour, journalist from NPR, Michelle Martin. And then it gets to the most dignified man in the room who couldn't lie if you put a gun to his head, George Will. And there's a huge warning with a Swedish European siren. Woo, woo. George Will, conservative columnist. It's a message to say, beware, you're going to hear some crazy ideas. That's how they frame the narrative. They're disingenuous and they're manipulative and they hate the idea that we exist because we point it out defiantly and we have to go to war with them in order to get people like you to go, oh, that's why I think these phrases. That's why when I see a conservative, I start chanting for no reason, racist, sexist, homophobe. Like, what? Why? You're programmed by George Stephanopoulos and the media. You need to deprogram, and I'm sorry, the modern academy is not the place to do it.
Lizzy, follow that, but so you want to say?
Yeah, if you give me 10 years, maybe I can follow up on that one.
Take a lot more than 10 years.
I would just like to bring up with how Newt Gingrich was kind of attacked at the South Carolina primaries. How that first question was started off with about his ex-wife, and they'd aired the interview beforehand. And, you know, it was just something that it was an inappropriate question. And while you see during the debates, the candidates would kind of, fight with each other, you see Newt Gingrich handled it very well and just kind of said how it wasn't appropriate and that wasn't the right time. And, you know, it just shows that liberal bend and bias in the media to have started out the debate with that. And actually all the candidates started out with, saying they actually said, yeah, that was an inappropriate question and it shouldn't have been asked. And, you look how other candidates were handled, when you had Michelle Bachmann, who was put on the cover of Newsweek magazine, and they called her the Queen of Rage. The introductory song that they had to her on Jimmy Kimmel. You see kind of how these Republicans are being treated during...
Jimmy Fallon.
Yes, Jimmy Fallon. You see how they are being treated, and, it's not something that should be brushed aside. Like, it should get, more attention.
Last question. We'll talk about the future. I was looking at a column in the Daily Trojan the other day, and it talked about the campaign season. Republican candidates are being attacked by the media. They're being attacked by the media because of liberal bias. It singled out the New York Times for criticism, singled out CBS News for criticism, and it was the column of the year. It was written in 1988, and it was written by me. Did I mention that it was the column of the year? And the point I want to make is it's amazing I was only 9 years old in 1988, but the point is, in some ways, we're still having the same conversation, but in some ways, everything is different. Dan Rather is gone. The New York Times is no longer number one. Let's look 25, 24 years into the future. Will things we still be dealing with those same problems and grappling, taking a quantum leap forward, or do you frankly see only clear skies ahead? Jon Fleischman.
Yeah, it goes back to what Andrew said, which is that news and news media is downstream from the culture that you have in your country and in your society. And so until we get to a point, when you're having a kind of a battle over how news coverage is, it's like literally so far downstream that we're not really going to move the needle. We're not going to move the needle until Americans start to reject the kind of crap that's coming out of Hollywood, until Americans start to say that we're going to be, like as de Tocqueville said, America is great because we're a good people. And as soon as America ceases to be great, we will cease to be great. And that's as true today as it was when he wrote it, over a century ago. And we need, as much as as we need people to go into journalism and into reporting that are going to be fair and unbiased and open-minded and approach things from all perspectives, we need the culture in America. We need, if you're watching this on streaming video or if you're sitting in here, the next time that there's a movie that comes out where you go, that's outrageous, and it challenges my sensibilities, just don't go buy the ticket. Don't go buy the movie. Don't go out there. Don't do it. Because at the end of the day, we're playing defense, and the only time we're going to actually make a big difference in turning around this country is going to be when we mount an offense against the culture that is dominant in this country.
Andrew, don't play defense. Go.
I don't. I think that we're in the adolescent phase of a transition, and as long as the left has its media matters who are out there in their minds rightfully trying to stop the inevitable, this equalizing of the media where they're like, wait, this is so unfair. We've controlled the narrative for so long from so many different angles, and these upstarts are doing it. Once we get past the totalitarians who are trying to stop the inevitable, who are saying you can't exist, you can't go on TV, you need to. They go out there and create campaigns to take advertising off of websites. They use every possible means they can to silence the opposition. It's like the idea, these people, including the professors, who would in the back of the room say, Fox News, ah! They get so upset about Fox News even existing. It's one channel out of 1,000, and they freak out that it even exists. When, think about it, Al Gore has a network called Current TV, and it's virulently leftist. Do you hear me saying, we need to get rid of Current TV, let alone MSNBC? Hello, I created the Huffington Post. People on the right are not saying you don't have a right to exist in the New York Times, but we're going to call you out for being the biased players that you are. Once we get rid of the totalitarians, I'll take care of it single-handedly. No one else have to worry. I'm at war with them, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Once we get rid of them, we are going to have something that's a more mature space, and it's more like what exists in the UK. Read the UK papers. They're better. They have a better sense of narrative. They have a better sense of storyline. They're not a bunch of uptight, upright, J-school types telling people what to think and how to think. Those people tend to be middle class guys that go to the pub at the end of the day after filing their stories and talk about the story and talk about the story. And I want to be at that bar. And at that bar, it doesn't matter if the story took down a person on the right or the left, conservative. Corruption is corruption, and that's where I stand. That's why when my editor had a 60 Minutes piece, thank you 60 Minutes for doing it, on a book called Throw Them All Out. His name was Peter Schweitzer, talking about insider trading in Congress. Nancy Pelosi was somebody who got on the inside of an IPO on Visa and made millions of dollars while she held up legislation. Pretty corrupt, I would argue. I didn't call for her to resign, but I called for Republican Spencer Baucus, who heads the Finance Committee, because using his crackberry, he was addicted to making trades based upon the information he was learning inside the power of the government. I could care less about partisan politics. You don't want to know what I'm thinking about Romney and Santorum. It's not what I do. I'm out there trying to level the playing field, and I think it's happening. I think it's inevitable, and that's what the future is. Sorry, Media Matters.
That's right. Let me throw this out so you can watch this happen in real time with Media Matters, because the last few weeks there's been a reporter with the LA Times calling all around. They're doing a big page one profile on Flash Report, Jon Fleischman, and then Tucker Carlson comes out with his article beating up on Media Matters, and he highlights a half a dozen key reporters around the country.
James Rainey.
Yeah, James Rainey's doing this profile on me. So watch it actually happen. Because we're voices, because we're effective, the LA Times will come out of nowhere, and I guarantee you, it's not just, Jon Fleischman isn't this activist who's had convictions since a youth activist.
You love it.
No.
You love it. I love it. It's awesome.
There you go. Well, keep an eye out for it. By the time it's over, I only do what I do because some guy who loves to ban plastic bags put a $300 ad on my website, and that's the foundation for my entire philosophical opinion on the issue.
Well, some great voices here, but even the most important voices are out there. Let's get quick questions or a lot of questions from the audience, and I'll turn it over to the other moderator, I guess. That's Jeff.
We have time for about 2 or 3 questions.
Can I thank USC? This is pretty neat that you allowed for us to be here to do this. This is good. Thank you.
And thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. My question is for Lizzy. What issues for the incoming younger class Republicans, people our age who you mean, what seems to be the burning issues? Because my fear is that we're against global warming, we feel like we're being bullied in the media, but I feel like we really need some more positive messages, we're for this, as opposed to reactionary, I feel, oppressed in some way. So what do you see most common among young students, and what do you think we should do to lead the way?
I would just have to say, with being a part of College Republicans, I can kind of speak on their behalf about that. I'd say one thing that we're definitely for is just sticking to our constitutional foundations and our values and just how this country was founded, and just not straying from those type of things, and just having a president that believes in the same values that we do, or at least similar values, not all of the exact values. But I'd say at College Republicans we just try to have a lot of discussion as to what we can do instead of, like you're saying, feeling oppressed or not taking action. We try to do things where we can take action, and bring in speakers so we can help become more well versed in what things are current issues and how we can affect them.
Who today wish was the next president?
You know, we actually take polls at each of the meetings, and it has been pretty consistent. You know, it went from like Herman Cain, then it went to Rick Perry. You know, I'd say now more of the consensus is with Mitt Romney. But you definitely have everyone. You have Ron Paul supporters. There are a few Ron Paul supporters, but you have, I guess, you know, more of Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich are probably the two leading candidates for us.
Time for 2 more questions. All right,
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a sophomore here. I come from the South, so Fox News is second.
Fascist.
Only to the Bible.
That's right, homophobe.
Exactly. So my question is, what are your thoughts on how the local demographic can affect your bias towards the media as a whole? And what, like, television or websites you see on a daily basis?
The local, like, meaning of Los Angeles? Or
Just
anywhere?
Where you're raised, anywhere where you're raised as an individual.
Huh. Well, anyway.
Well, I mean, the short answer is, you know, obviously if you grow up in Waxilla, Alaska, in a small little community where all you have is your local paper, your local community values matter, although we're in the era that we're in, everything's becoming more nationalized. So I would submit to you that if you're a young person growing up, I don't care where you grow up, you're now being subjected to national media wherever you are. And so I'm not sure if your question is how much is, I don't know that the media, the media kind of acculturating you is going to matter as much as the other things in your, you know, how you were growing up, how you were raised, and all of that. The unfortunate part is, in general, everybody kind of has to leave where they are and eventually go to college, which of course is just the petri dish from hell for all of these liberal professors who just kind of like, we've got 4 years to try to make you so left-wing so that by the time you leave here, you either A, have no desire to actually get a job, or if you get a job, you're not really outraged by all the taxes that come out of your paycheck to pay for our social engineering. And so, you know, while I'm not sure I'm addressing your question directly, maybe Andrew's got something to add.
One trick that the media likes to do is the Meghan McCain trick. And they like to bring Meghan McCain on, who's a Republican, right? And then she goes on and she bashes Republicans. Okay, you get that? I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're not bringing her on because she's a, you know, a Nobel Prize winner in the making. That's the only thing she does. She's like, I think these people are so, I can't believe how, like, stupid Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann are. It's like the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
That's your Megan. Right?
Yeah. Okay. I believe that tactic is used over and over and over and over again. Dale Gargan has swallowed his tongue. That guy, he attacks conservatives because he used to be a conservative. And that's what the media likes to do. And from a regional standpoint, because all I did was read newspapers and all I did was watch local news. One thing that they've done, James Carville, Ann Richards, Molly Ivins from the South with rich, thick accents who use folkisms in order to get their Ross, like that thick. And they
down home Southern charm.
Yeah, but they find leftists and they package that folksyism into in order to create the perception that leftists, that the South has a bunch of apologetic leftists who would like to get on the left plantation, whereas the majority of the people in the South want their independence. They want more freedom in their lives, not less freedom. And there's so much manipulation going on. There's so much manipulation in terms of demographics, in terms of using black columnists in order to attack white people, looking for dog whistles, looking to find racism where it doesn't exist. Demographics is everything for the left in terms of voter registration, voter fraud, media manipulation, and dividing and conquer, pitting people against each other. That's why I abhor the separatism in the post-structural environment in the modern academy. It didn't exist like this 30 years ago.
Just one more quick question.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm a senior at the Andrew School.
It's the last question, so it really has to be good.
And I sit in classrooms with my silk-haired ponytail teachers and learn this, narrow definition of what news is. So my question for you is, in the future, we're going through this age of technology innovation. Do you think that news will continue to be defined as
disseminating information, or when you're disseminating viewpoints through blogging, through social media, through your friends? What is news?
Lizzy, you want to start? Or?
Sure. I mean, I definitely think that with blogging, like you're mentioning, and with Twitter and Facebook, it's a lot easier to just spread, your opinions and your viewpoints. And with that, people can share, they can retweet. So I think that, one thing is we are heading down, that path where it is going to be like that. It is just going to be viewpoints. But, I think that we have a lot of, liberal and conservative, well, not a lot necessarily, but liberal and conservative papers where at least, if you believe that viewpoint, then you can get, your information from there. But I do think that with blogs, and like you're saying, the power that it will be a little bit more just people's viewpoints. But at the same time, I think it's good to remember that you have the choice of where you want to read, what you want to read. Like I mentioned earlier, checking and balancing the information. So I think just, keeping that in mind. And I think it's great. It's nice to see a fellow student who's also aware of, and considers the bias that's also in the classroom.
It's time to give thanks. Thank, first of all, these institutions, this institution, and thank this panel.
For leading a terrific conversation. This series continues next week. The Bedrosian Center representatives, what's on the tap for next week?
We're talking about nuclear energy.
Nuclear energy. Okay,
You're
terrific.
in Atlanta.
And then I do want to introduce a couple of folks who report to our center in the room. We've got Morley Winograd, one of our senior fellows, who's here. And George Klein, our executive in residence, a long-time newspaper publisher as well. Thank you all for coming. This will be online if anybody wants to watch it or share it with friends, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good afternoon.
Beautiful. Awesome.